I'm just going to quickly go through this. This will be the last video I make for this project. I'll just quickly go through everything because I recorded a 18-minute video going through everything, and it turned out my microphone wasn't on, so I'm just going to make it as quick as possible and just summarise as much. So this shows my inspiration, my games that I can take inspiration from, and explain my preferences towards these games, just like other things here. This is like mood boards, so I can see what I'm working with them type of games from them categories, and I can like look at this for example and go, no, I don't want that from my game, and then I can look at this and go, like, that's what I want from my game. I'll kind of explain that here. Then I looked at some pre-production, but I didn't really use this much in the end, because I did like inventory systems and things like that, and just planning out how I'd go about making some mechanics. But like I said, I didn't finish it because I didn't end up using it that much. Here's me comparing my site to an example site provided by the tutors, just so I can make sure my work's up to standard. Here's some feedback on my original plan, which was to make a big open world game, kind of like Days Gone, with bike mechanics and things like that. But it was a bit too ambitious, so after talking to my tutors, I like scaled it down to a more realistic scale. Here's some primary research I did. Form 1 is more like generic questions about the genre. Form 2 is more attuned to like level design questions and things. Explain that here. I did some prison layout research, which is something you'll see like in the later design. So this is like general layouts, and then I did some tower research just so I can make sure it's as accurate as possible, and I use these for my final design like in the project. Then I made some story concepts, so this is version 1, version 2, version 3, etc. And I built the story into the level and the level around the story, so they work together. This one, first concept, kind of looked like a Fortnite map, and didn't really like it. It was a bit too big, and obviously after my feedback I scaled it down a bit. This is a draft 2, this is a final draft, but in the final project you'll see I only ended up using like this section, like the bottom section, because I just didn't have time, because I just spent a bit too much time on pre-production, planning, things like that. But there's just like text explaining what it is. There's like player reference, which isn't accurate, it's probably more something like this or this, but then it explains what these are, so like interactables like explosive barrels, and then just like text that explains what these are, like hype trail that leads to more houses, things like that. I explained like the thought process behind this map, and this is something I was talking about in the second video with the tutorial. This section would be like where the tutorial takes place, like this road. So this is a spawn point of the main level. So in the tutorial, the idea is he's driving down this road because he's a journalist and he's wanting to see what's happening on the island. Military stop him, gets into some kind of crash on the other side of the border, and then that's kind of what happens in the tutorial, and then he wakes up, and that's why I put the waking up thing in the tutorial, so then it's like he's waking up from the crash, which I just think is pretty cool how I like integrated that. Obviously these sections here kind of explain more of my thought process and things like that. And obviously my third draft, didn't get around to doing it because I didn't really like it, and just by this shape alone I preferred this one, so I just stuck with this one. Lastly, we've got my map highlights. So horde highlight shows where the hordes would be. This text here, handwritten text, it's all transcript on my site, my portfolio, so I'm not going to go through it all here. But yeah, this just shows where hordes would be. This shows where danger would be. So like high danger, medium, low. Objective highlights, so it shows like side missions, hint missions, final missions, stuff like that. So this would be like a final mission that ends the game. Same with this. The yellow ones would be like hints towards the final missions, and then green ones would be just like collectibles, like weapons and things like that. It just explains like kind of what happens and what my ideas are and things like that. This one, this was a plan to show what my priority is when making this level. So it just goes down, and like this one would be first, second, etc. Obviously I only ended up doing like this section, so it doesn't really matter now, but it's interesting to see what my thought process was. So there's all this text to go along with it. Then this last one links to my danger highlight. I've tried reflecting that. So this is like the weather highlight. So this would be grass, this would be sand, and this would be snow. And I tried conveying the danger through the environment. So this would be grass, more scenic, more peaceful in a way. This would be sand, feels a little bit more dangerous, and then snow, where it's cold and there's like blizzards and things like that. So I tried reflecting that, and I talked about it in here. But yeah, that's all my map highlights. And also this I took from Days Gone, which I did research for here. So there's like, this is Days Gone map. This is what I was originally going for, like a big world with tons of things to do. Starts off like foresty, goes a bit sandy, snowy, and then this is like the final area. So you go down and it gets progressively harder. And there's just more screenshots and things to reference from. There's like Lastra's 2 building layouts to just show more level design. This like shows the level design in action kind of thing. Here there's just some sources that I used. Here there's some screenshots that I took from Last of Us 2 and Days Gone, and it explains what I was focused on in each screenshot. It's like the UI, the environment, the mechanics, and just like more things like enemy entry points and things like that. And it just shows like what I took inspiration from. And again, there's more like level design things from Days Gone here, UI, stuff like that. Lastly, we've got my generic timeline, which is pretty simple, just a basic plan. As it says here, I expanded on it in the proposal and also on my portfolio, but I also branched off from this and made this, which is my Trello board, which just plans out my tasks and things like that. So there's all labels and things, which just helps me keep on top of everything. And then lastly, there's existing dev diaries, which just shows me what I can put in my dev diaries and how I can structure them, which I did here. These are my dev diaries. And that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, there's asset research as well, so it's showing like what my thought process was for choosing these assets, which ones I'd choose over others, and you know, like looking at the prices of them, things like zombie models, player models, plugin tools, which I did choose this one, but I didn't end up using it. And there's obviously these other ones that I researched. More zombie models, assets I can put in my level, just things like that. And then that's, oh yeah, difficulty curves, which just make sure that I'm integrating these flowcharts into my level and my thought process. So I kind of did this with my prison layout in the final project. I made it so you start at one side of the prison, and obviously there'd be like zombies around chasing you. You'd be able to get into sections that are safe from the zombies, and you can just explore the area at your own risk, basically. But then you get rewarded with things like stamina pickups, which increase your max stamina, and there would be like weapon pickups as well for better weapons. So it's giving the player a risk, but giving them a reward that can make the playthrough easier for them in the end. But it's just making sure it's all in this flow. And that's pretty much it. Again, this text here explains my thought process behind all of these, but I'm not going to go through it in this video. It's all transcript in my portfolio, so there's no point going through it here. It's a bit too much. But yeah, that's it. Just showing my planning, my research, things like that. So yeah, that's it. Bye.